Hey everybody, welcome back to Top 10 Nerd.
I'm your host Johnny Rogers.
And I'm Kelly Pally, and we are doing a collab video today. Isn't that exciting, guys?
It's new, it's exciting.
It's like they've never seen us on the screen together.
I know that.
I mean, tier list. We did have like,
I guess
we
tier
did do
list.
that. But on this channel, in this universe, this is probably like the first.
This is like Top 10 Nerd alternate realities, in which we do duo videos. Today is going to be an exciting one. Are you a big fan of Elseworlds?
Yeah, I am. I am. Like,
I just got into it. I actually really enjoy it.
They're so cool. There's some of them that are
great.
just like so damn good.
It's the artwork that gets me really.
Yeah. It's like pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
Cool, so let's hop into this video, guys, and be sure to stick around to the end to let us know what your favorite Elseworlds are in those comments below.
Alright, let's jump into the top 10 scary DC Elseworlds stories that you need to read. In at number 10, The Nail. As the title suggests, it's literally a nail that shatters the potential future for Superman, and if you're a fan of The Last Son of Krypton, then this Elseworlds story is a must-read. 24 years in the past, a flat tire caused by a nail in the truck of Jonathan and Martha Kent stopped them from ever discovering that Kryptonian spaceship with baby Clark inside. As such, the present-day team only consists of Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, Hawkwoman, The Atom, Martian Manhunter, and the Green Lantern. A lot goes down without Superman being there to carry most of the team. I mean, the Joker lets out prisoners in Arkham Asylum with these energy generating gauntlets that he also used to trap Batman and kill both Robin and Batgirl. Wonder Woman becomes not so wonderful when she's framed for destroying the White House, which leads to rioting, and this outbreak and disorder and chaos ultimately leads to Lex Luthor controlling the United States and using flying robots to enforce his laws. So if you're a fan of the Justice League, you should definitely read this one because it's a whole new thing without Superman. The whole team dynamic changes to the point where Green Lantern is the strongest hero.
Moving on to number 9, we've got Speeding Bullet. This DC Elseworlds story explores the idea of what the DC world would look like if Superman never landed in Kansas, but rather landed in Gotham. So as such, he would be plucked up and raised by Thomas and Martha Wayne instead of John and Martha Kent. I know, two Marthas, but hey, if you can put that aside for a moment to embrace this bulletproof Batman, then you'll realize how cool the story is. However, even with this new Bruce Wayne Kal-El hybrid, the Bat's parents are still fatally killed. Unfortunately, that's usually their fate in these storylines. Although it's what also leads to this universe's Bruce Wayne to discover his supernatural abilities and decides to use them to fight crime as the Batman. He's so shocked by his parents being killed that he actually blasts the criminal with his laser eyes, which is just so satisfying. So if you've ever said to yourself, man, how cool would it be if Batman had superpowers? Well, you're in luck, my friend, because Speeding Bullets is all that and more.
In at number 8, Red Rain. The story of Dracula has been used many times in the past by both Marvel and DC Comics, but Red Rain took things to a whole new level of creepy vampire stories. In this Batman Elseworlds tale, we see the Dark Knight defending Gotham from the Lord of the Vampires. What a cool name. Ultimately, Batman becomes a vampire as well, but we feel like that almost makes sense for his character. The repercussions of such a dark Batman storyline leads to a tragic telling of Gotham's mightiest heroes and villains. Plus, the story for this DC Elseworlds comic isn't the only reason why we encourage you to read it. The artwork is absolutely unparalleled and has been said that it's the eeriest Batman art to date. So whether you're a longtime fan of the dark versions of the Bat, or if you just enjoy scary stories in general, Red Rain is a must read.
Moving on to number 7, Red Sun. Superman Red Sun was a 3-part miniseries published in 2003 and begins with the premise of what if Superman had been raised in the Soviet Union. When Kal-El's spacecraft lands on a Ukrainian farm instead of in Kansas, we see a drastically dark transformation of the Superman we know and love. He goes from fighting for truth and justice to being described as the champion of the common worker who fights a never-ending battle for Stalin, socialism, and the international expansion of the Warsaw Pact. Yikes. The writers make it very clear that even the last son of Krypton is not immune to nationalism. This scary story shows just how easily the nurturing in a particular area of the world at a particular time in history could radicalize even the noblest amongst us. The plot uses the real history of Soviet Russia post-World War II, bringing to life the perspective from America's opposition and dropping Superman into the mix of it all.
In at number 6, Justice Riders. If you're a fan of the HBO show Westworld and comic books as well, Justice Riders is a must-read for you. Although admittedly it has nothing to do with the show Westworld and precedes its time, it is an exploration of the Justice League as heroes in the Wild Wild West. The excellent thing with this storyline is that it never depends on Superman or Batman to make things exciting. As you can tell from our last few points, much of the DC Elseworld usually has a prime focus on either Bruce Wayne or Clark Kent in their alternate forms. However, for this one, it's a world in which Wonder Woman, Flash, and Martian Manhunter trade in their outfits for a more cowboy-style appearance. Never has Wonder Woman's lasso made more sense than in this storyline. It's truly a breath of fresh air if you're growing tired of all the Batman and Superman-based stories.
Moving on to number 5, Thrill Killer. Thrill Killer was a one-shot 3-issue miniseries published in 1997 that took place on an alternate timeline of Earth. Earth 37, set in the early 60s. It sees Batgirl and Robin taking on a female Joker. Now Bruce Wayne works for the Gotham PD and Barbara Gordon has purchased the Wayne Manor, using it to fight crime with her assistant and lover Dick Grayson. The Joker is known as a gangster named Bianca Steeplechase, who eventually poisons Robin, masquerades as the mayor's wife, and ends up kidnapping and torturing Bruce Wayne. Needless to say, it is a dark period piece all set at the dawn of the sexual revolution and the beginnings of the Vietnam War, and there's a whole lot of death. And it finds Batgirl doing the one thing that Batman in the main continuity refuses to do. She kills the Joker. She drowns her in Gotham River.
Coming in at number 4, The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight Returns is arguably one of the most prolific comic miniseries in DC's history, and is largely responsible for a resurgence in darker, grim takes on the Caped Crusader that often prevails in our depictions of the superhero to this date. Set in a futuristic dystopian Gotham where technology runs rampant, a 55-year-old Bruce Wayne comes out of retirement as Batman to take on a new flood of crime in Gotham City. But he isn't met without opposition. The Gotham PD aren't big fans, nor are a new hyper-violent street gang called the Mutants. When the US government begins to see Batman's return as a major threat, Superman is deployed to take him on, culminating in one of the most memorable battles between the two iconic heroes. Penned by Frank Miller, it's a much more bleak take on the Caped Crusader, featuring him as a hardened, cynical vigilante still suffering from a traumatic past that haunts him every move he makes.
Up next in our number 3 spot, Gotham by Gaslight. One of the most beloved Elseworld stories to date, Gotham by Gaslight is set in the 19th century, following Bruce Wayne's beginnings as the Caped Crusader just as Jack the Ripper has shown up in Gotham City. You can see where this is going. Criminal activity is on the rise in Gotham, and Bruce finds himself framed by Jack the Ripper for a series of murders after a bloody knife is found in his bed. After escaping from prison, Bruce ends up discovering the identity of the famous serial killer, a man who had worked with his father Thomas Wayne and went insane after his mother Martha Wayne had rejected his advances, and thus murdered both of them. A sequel was produced as well, Batman Master of the Future, which took place in 1892, a handful of years after Gotham by Gaslight, but it failed to get the same rave reviews as its predecessor. Needless to say, there's murder and it's dark.
In at number 2, Amazonia. From 1997, Wonder Woman Amazonia is a one-shot that takes place between 1888 and 1928 on Earth 19. When a mysterious explosion kills Queen Victoria and all of her immediate family members, a mysterious individual named Jack Planters claims to be a distant heir to the throne and becomes King Jack, a tyrant who actually murdered the royal family in order to come into power. It's implied that this is Jack the Ripper, who had also murdered 4 Whitechapel prostitutes for practice prior to knocking off the royals. So where does Wonder Woman fit into this narrative? Diana, while this is happening, is abducted off of Paradise Island by Steve Trevor, who, on this Earth, is rather wicked. He forces her to marry him, and by 1928 Diana has become a star in London theatre. But in response to the militaristic society King Jack has created, she organizes a resistance. Under his rule, the British Empire is incredibly misogynistic, has suspended all women's rights, and has declared an unjust war against France. So Diana steps up and ends up working with Jack's son, Prince Charles, to take the tyrant down.
And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Kingdom Come. Written by Alex Ross and Mark Waid in 1996, Kingdom Come is one of the most nerve-wracking alternate realities to exist within the DC multiverse. It is a deconstructionist tale that explores the toxic dynamic between traditional, out-of-touch superheroes and a new generation of vigilantes who are largely amoral and irresponsible, and not above committing murder and other heinous acts to stop criminals. Batman, of course, finds himself in the middle of these two groups, trying to de-escalate the tension in hopes of preventing a metahuman war. war. The Justice League has stepped down, and a new team of heroes led by a character named Magog have put the Earth in peril. During an attack on Parasite, thanks to their reckless planning, millions of Americans are irradiated and killed, and a large portion of the America's food population is wiped out entirely, putting the nation in precarious circumstances. And it only goes downhill from there. So definitely read that one, no spoilers.
And that has been the top 10 scary DC Elseworlds stories that you need to read. Thank you so much for watching. What should they do if they enjoyed this video?
I think you guys should probably like this video and then maybe subscribe if you haven't already, because you know what, we would love it if you guys stuck around and hung out with us some more.
Yeah, plus leave us a comment down below if you have a different DC Elseworlds story that you love.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your opinions all the time, so do it.
And for more videos like this one, just click that playlist on the screen. From Top 10 Nerd, I'm Johnny Rogers.
And I'm Kelly Pally.
Till next time, take care.
See you guys.